Let's talk a little bit about Ultima IV and my memories of Ultima IV. Ultima IV was a RPG on several systems, but I played it mainly on the Commodore 64. In fact, I played it exclusively on the Commodore 64. And what got me thinking about that recently was there was a remake actually a year and a half or 2 years ago by the Genesis project to remaster Ultima IV. And it looked really interesting. Basically updated graphics, but more importantly, a lot of updated fixes. There were glitches, especially in the conversations when you played Ultima IV. There was a lot of typos, a lot of branches that just didn't work right in the conversation dialogue. So the Genesis project went out to do that. Plus, they made a very handy cartridge image of the game, which is pretty amazing when you consider that Ultima had a lot of times in it when it would need disk access, so you're sitting there waiting. This particular, there are a lot of different versions of Ultima. Ultima IV, Quest of the Avatar, is the one primarily that I played. But of any game on the Commodore 64, I think I have the most memories. I wouldn't say always the best memories, because I played a lot of games I loved, like Paradroid and Lode Runner and Bruce Lee and so many other games. But Ultima IV was the first game that I felt I was so engrossed in that it began creeping into other parts of my life, and some good results, some with bad results. But memories nonetheless. And this is probably the game I went the most deep into, and one of the very first, not first, but one of the very few games that I beat as a kid. And the funny thing is, I was trying to think of all the games that I played all the way through and beat, and I can't remember them all. I know Paradroid was one of them. There were a few more, but the two that stand out the most in my mind that I was the most proud of, because they were the most difficult, was they were both Origin games, because Ultima was made by Origin Systems. And the first one I beat was Auto Duel, which I really liked too. It was a car combat RPG, and I remember beating that and just being so happy about that. But Ultima IV was the other one, and that was probably, in my mind, and I know this sounds kind of silly to say it, but probably one of the proudest gaming moments I ever did, and was beating that. But I the memories are getting a little hazy with the exact history of Ultima. I do remember reading about it in magazines and just drooling over it. It was really, I had never really played an in-depth RPG before, other than Auto Duel. Auto Duel was kind of like getting my feet wet in the RPG world. And I remember playing some kind of pseudo RPG games like Master of Magic and a couple other ones on the Commodore 64, but Ultima was just everything I'd wanted. A Dungeons and Dragons based kind of game, conversations, puzzles to solve, a giant world where you could go anywhere. One of the first open world kind of games. And the magazines at the time just gave it rave reviews. So I really wanted to get a copy of it. But meanwhile, a friend of mine who didn't live too far from me got it. And so I remember going over there and looking in the box, and it was amazing. I remember there were two manuals. One was like a quick reference card, and one was, there were, I remember two manuals, but I don't remember what was in them exactly. A quick reference card, and then there was a cloth map, like a big map that was made out of cloth, and I just thought that was amazing. There was also a little symbol, an Ankh, or Ankh, however you pronounce it. It looked like a little cross. But I just thought that was so cool that they would include these little things in a game. And and the game was expensive, so it wasn't something I just run out and get. So I saw my friend get it, and then it came on 2 discs, and I think it was double-sided both discs. Can't really remember though. But anyway, I sat down and he played it, and I would watch him play it, and I was just floored. This was a game I wanted to have. We would sit there together for hours and hours and hours and just play this game. And it was really to the point where I remember I was in my sophomore year of high school. So this would have been, I don't know, it would have been like 1986, I think. And I would do all of these tricks to call in sick for school. Like, I would just pretend like I was sick. But mostly what I would do is when I left home, I would disconnect the phone. Like, in the back of the phone, I would just unplug it just a little bit, so you couldn't really notice it was unplugged, but it wouldn't work. So that when the school called, they would just get endless ringing. Then I would ride my bike over to my friend's house, and we would play Ultima IV. And we would play whole day, and then I would just go home. And then the next day when I went to school, I would forge a note from my mom, and these things I'm not necessarily proud of, but I did them nonetheless. But it brings me to the point that I got so engrossed in that game that I missed so many days of school that I very nearly failed my sophomore year of high school in almost every class because of this game. And the good thing is that that never happened again. I never got so engrossed in the game that I got, that close to failing. So maybe, and I don't remember if I was even this aware or conscious of it, but I think I learned my lesson, quote unquote, learned my lesson, and never got into that kind of trouble again. But nonetheless, the game was so engrossing that it was just easy to get, mired down in that. I just remember long days of just sitting in front of my friend's computer playing Ultima IV. And he would have friends too that were so engrossed in it. It was kind of like this local phenomenon. And he had a friend that would come over. And I remember once, on a day I actually did go to school, we walked home together with me and this friend who had Ultima. We walked home, and we found some things in his room out of place. And we had found out, and I don't remember the details here, but we had found out that one of his other buddies was breaking into his house, not to steal anything, not to do anything like that, but to actually play the game, which he would. He would play the game on his own discs, his save discs, and then he would go home. So he would just break in through windows, or however he got in. They weren't really all that lax, or they were really lax about their security in their home, but that's how badly some people wanted to play this game. So I remember he had to talk to his friend about breaking in and doing that. But I remember getting my copy of it. I went to a store. There was a computer store near an Air Force base. And I remember saving up money like you wouldn't believe. I was doing chores, mowing lawns. My sister worked at a Domino's Pizza, and I would hang coupons. This was before I was old enough to work legally. I would hang coupons on doors just to get enough money to buy this game. And I remember going and buying it and opening the box, seeing the cloth map and the manuals, the big thick manuals, and just loving it. And once I had my copy, I had already played probably halfway through the game at my friend's house. So he was kind of like my real-time strategy guide. Like, I kind of knew what to do up to the point we had played through. And I do specifically remember that he beat the game first. And so I remember seeing the end credit, or the end of the game, and I probably was a couple of weeks behind him and beating that game. But I think of all the games I played in that time era, I know I spent the most hours playing that one. I would just spend hours and hours and hours, not only at his house, but my house playing it. So I kind of played it twice through. Over the years, I never played an Ultima after that, and I don't know why. I had such a great time with Ultima IV, but I never did the online ones or the more modern versions. And maybe I just wanted to leave my memories, intact for such a great game. I don't know, but I don't know. Out of all the Commodore 64 games, that's the one that sticks in my head the most, even though I don't really talk about it as much. But anyway, my last memory is that up to maybe 10 years ago, I still had the cloth map. I didn't have anything else. They got lost to time and several moves. I lost everything, but I had the cloth map, and I remember thinking to myself, man, I really want to keep this and as a memory thing. And it had little pinholes in it because I would put it on my wall. It was a really pretty thing. But now that is lost too. I don't know what happened to it. I have no idea. So I don't have anything left of Ultima IV in the physical world. I haven't started playing the remake yet, or the remastered version from Genesis Project, but I've been thinking to myself I might want to give that a shot and try it out. But if I do, I kind of want to go on eBay and find a copy of Ultima IV so that I can use the cloth map and the manuals like I did back in the day, because those were pretty integral to playing. Kind of brings up a point that I know has been reiterated. Something is lost when you play digital games and not the physical copy. And not with some games. Some games you just got a disc and a piece of paper that were instructions. But some games, like Ultima IV, part of the game was the physical props that came within the box. And I think those are an important part of that type of game.